Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me comic artist J.W. Sims, who is the artist on Omni, which is
Omni.
available.
Omni.
Omni. I already got it wrong, so that's a good start to this interview right here, which is right now available to back actually on Kickstarter. So if you like what you hear throughout this entire interview, I'm going to encourage everybody to go check it out and back it on Kickstarter. So having said all that and getting Omni already wrong, which I just got right, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I know you ran your show. I commented on it. We were trying to set something up, and then it took like 2 weeks, sort of, because it sort of happened around Christmas, and now we're doing it now. And so I'm very excited about interviewing you, actually talking about Omni. But I think the best place to start is, what is Omni about? Because there are people who are going to be hearing about it for the first time.
Of
And
course.
so what is it about? What is the basic premise?
All right. Well, the short story is our main character Floyd Miller. He is a 20-something comic book store. I don't say he's an owner, but he works in a comic book store and he lives above it. His favorite comic book is a superhero named Mega from the 70s. Excuse me. And when he comes in contact with this mysterious rock, he gets the powers of Mega. And so it just is us following his story. There is no other superpowered beings. He's the very first one. So it's how the world reacts to having a superpowered being in the world and how he reacts to those people. So like we always say, like, if that would happen in our world, you're going to have people who think he's a god because he has god's-like powers. Like they're going to think it's Jesus Christ come to earth or something. So you're going to have people who worship him. You're going to have people who are afraid of him, especially after they see what he can do. And then you're going to have like the governments of the world who want to use him for their own as a weapon. So it's just us following that story. It's a 12-issue maxi series. The first 4 issues will be out this year. And so we're hoping to get this first one funded so I can. The second one is actually already done. So in a couple of months, once I go through all the fulfillment and everything, we're going to have issue 2 on Kickstarter. Issue 3, I'm almost done. I'm doing the colors right now for it. And then issue 4, the line art's done. And so once I'm done with issue 3, I will move on to coloring issue 4.
So let's even dive a little bit further, because obviously this is a superhero story, but it's not your traditional superhero story. And I want to break down some more parts of this, but I am curious, what was the inspiration for this? Because we have an origin superhero story in a world that doesn't have superheroes. So it's not, Superman where we have vigilantism taking place, and we have, super powered things. In Superman, and in DC's world, we have Green Lantern, Superman, we have Wonder Woman, and we can keep naming characters. Obviously you said this is the first one, so I'm really curious where the inspiration came from, because you've done other comics.
Yeah, well, with Hooligan Alley Comics, we pretty much, it's pretty much all superhero comics that we do. But they're usually superhero comics with a twist. There's something, that makes them not just your regular comic book, regular superhero. But L.C. Holt, who's the co-creator, he is a horror actor. He's been in the movie You're Next. He was.
So you're making him work, is what you're doing.
Well, he came to me with the idea, and then we just. So, like I've been telling people that, like especially the first story arc, really is your very superhero-esque, story. But if you stay with us through the whole thing, it really changes. Like that, there's a change in the character and in the characters in the book that you start seeing in issues 2, 3, and 4, and then by the end, you won't think he's a Superman clone. So.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because there's a lot of moving parts, and obviously this is superheroes with a twist. So I think I'm curious about this. Omni Floyd Floyd Miller is a weak character in many ways, and he follows very much the trajectory of, well, he gets this mysterious rock, gives him superpowers, gives him muscles. It's kind of that serum that Captain America gets. And he
Yeah,
gets,
actually, with Omni, he can make himself look like anything. Um, but he chose to look like Mega because Mega is his favorite comic book. And actually, through the series, every issue you'll see an issue of Mega somewhere in the issues. So it's that story actually plays a big part in the story as it moves forward.
and so to even go off of that, because obviously, whenever we get a situation where a hero emerges or a new technology emerges, obviously there are several different things that happen. And so I think the question that this entire comic explores is that, what does it mean to be a hero? Because we have this idea where he is worshipped as a god, and yet he's also feared at the exact same time by
Yeah.
some people. And so what is that like to create that dichotomy? Because that's obviously something that we see with technology in our society. We
Yeah.
have seen it with a variety
Well,
of
actually,
things.
right at the beginning of issue 2, you see the president is giving him the Medal of Honor, I believe it is, because because there's now this superpowered being, there's no wars in the world anymore because they would just send him to end it. Like he would just go and end the war. So that's where you get like some of these smaller countries or war torn countries. They see him come in and save them, and they just they don't get the news. They don't know who this guy is. They just think he's God who has come down to save them. But at the same time, you have the military people who he's defeated. They report back to their boss, hey, there's this guy who, he was bulletproof and he could, just rip our tanks apart and things like that. So,
And so what is that like? Because obviously there's a political game now being played in
yeah,
that, and obviously Omni, Floyd Miller is being now used somewhat politically. Obviously, I'm sure that the president didn't just give him a medal for no good reason, and so you
yeah,
got that in there, and that's something that's very interesting when we talk about heroes and things like that. Because obviously, reading this and seeing it and doing my research on this, that's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind is that we now have a situation where we have somebody who can very well be manipulated, and not
yeah.
not to be disrespectful to him as a character, but he doesn't seem experienced enough.
No, not at all. You could think
No.
he's a 20-year-old kid who's never got anything. That he's not had a girlfriend. He's not had and now all of a sudden he's the most powerful being in the world, and he realizes that he can do anything that he wants, and there's nobody who can stop him. So that's another thing that we touch on is that he's in a sense is a god, and what happens when he realizes that he is a god and he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and I also think that when we talk about gods and even the fact that he's 20 years old and I'm 28, you're obviously older than me. And one of the things that I understand is that it took me a long time to figure out, and I'm very humble when I say this, and I don't mean to, I know how it's going to sound a little messed up, but obviously your morale compass, what you
Oh
believe
yeah,
is righteous, what you believe is justice, that takes a little bit of time to develop. And obviously, we as society and as people know that we don't steal, but then there's a whole brevity of issues in society that I've had my opinion changed on as I grew older.
mm-hmm.
And obviously, given that he has all these God powers, he has his own sense of justice and righteousness. So, what is that like to play with that? Because obviously, he's doing things and he's dishing out his own righteousness and
Mm-hmm.
his own form of justice. And I don't know if it's so righteous and justice
Yeah,
oriented.
exactly. We touched that a little bit in the first issue. In the pages the preview pages, you'll see his friend comes into the comic book store and he has a black eye and he makes an excuse for like he fell skateboarding or something. And one of the first thing Omni does is pays his dad a visit because he knows that his dad is an abusive father. So he pays him a visit. And so I mean that's the kind of thing that's going through his head now that he has all these powers. He can protect his friends. He can. if something that he sees is wrong and it's not being taken care of, he's going to take care of it. Doesn't care what the outcome is or the repercussion, because he knows nobody can do anything to him.
Yeah, and so this kind of raises the question, and I was speaking to David Whalen about this, and he has a comic called I Won't Stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a one shot. And I asked this question to him because this seems very similar, is that what does it mean to be a hero? Because this doesn't seem very heroic. You
Yeah.
know, we have a character here who basically is doing what he thinks is right.
Exactly. Well,
It's not, Superman. Superman, when we talk about heroes, Superman is an alien that could easily blow up Earth in about 3 minutes if he wanted to. Yet he chooses to say, hey, this guy is doing something and I don't want this to happen, and I'm going to fly out of the city and the bad guy's going to chase me so I don't hurt people. This does not seem that.
No, like one of my favorite things people I say is a villain is the hero of their own story. Like no villain thinks that they're doing bad stuff. They think that this is the only way they can get to the goal that they're trying to reach. And that's kind of how Omni is, because he is a young, impulsive person. He doesn't think about repercussions before he acts. He just acts and doesn't care about what happens, really.
Yeah, and then obviously it creates a very interesting situation because what I really like about this entire concept, and I actually like this concept, and there's other people who do things that are similar, and we don't see this with DC or Marvel. We don't really see why people are acting when they have superpowers. The closest thing that I can imagine in our society is that when you get money, you don't really change. The money doesn't change you.
It just brings out your true self.
And now that's what this seems in many ways, where Omni, as a hero, he's not, or maybe hero is not the right word, but as a superpowered individual, now he thinks he's having like all this growth and he actually has power, and we're now seeing these indecisive positions that he's making because taking care of his friend's dad gave him a black eye, and the way he might do it might be unproportional to what has happened. And it might not be the best situation to handle it. Throwing somebody off a roof when they give you a black eye is not an appropriate response. Yeah. So it's like, it's really interesting because this is very much on a psychological level. And I find this to be so fascinating because it's really exploring what I don't think DC and Marvel explore. They're superheroes.
Yeah, and that's what I said. In his mind, he's a hero. Like I said, in the first 4 issues, he does a lot of heroic stuff, but then there's also little things that make you think, well, Superman wouldn't do it that way. And that's why I had put up a video on my Kickstarter, because I heard it a lot. Oh, this is just a Superman ripoff. And I'm like, well, it's not really. I mean, yes, it looks like a Superman character with muscles and a cape. And on purpose, we wanted him to look like Superman, because whenever we think of a superhero, anybody thinks of a superhero, that's the first thing that pops in your mind is Superman, just standing out, chest out, cape flapping in the wind. And so we wanted to put that idea in your head that this is a superhero. This is what the world sees as a superhero.
To even jump off of that, because I think that is super important, because I appreciate a lot of stories and I'm writing my own stuff. Whether that goes anywhere or not is not the point. But one of the things is that I feel like this is setting up a solid argument meant to be knocked down in many ways. Meaning we got this goody two shoes, and I say it the way I say it with Superman, where this character looks, operates, smells, and seems like a familiar Superman, and then we get the complete dark side. And that just highlights the point. It's kind of like you see something nice and pretty on the surface, and then you flip the mattress over and you see, it being blown up. And it creates that economy, that, I guess juxtaposition really highlights the mentality. And I think that's something that people, maybe they don't get it off the bat, and they don't understand why you're setting that up. And I think it's super important, because the point of this comic is not to be Superman. is to show what happens when you give somebody superpowers and you amplify their position and you actually put them in a position of power, and what goes right and what goes wrong, or how they get played to some degree, which is sort of what's happening. And then we're dealing with how Omni is going to be moving forward from this point, which I just think is great, because we get what we all know, and then that's taken away and broken apart very easily, purposely. And that's why I really like this comic and the way it looks. And then I'm very excited for it, because I like when we break things down.
Yeah, and like in the third issue, we will have introduced to a new super-powered person. It's just going to kind of be his conscious, I guess is the best way to put it. And so, like in the fourth issue, there's an event that happens that you will be like, this is Superman, like this is, but he makes a decision during that isn't a decision Superman would make. Put it that way. So
but that decision though is human.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's not from another planet. He wasn't born with powers. He lived for 20 some years, being picked on and being bullied and things like that. And when he gets these powers, he finally realizes he can strike back at those people.
Yeah, I think that's something that is super important also to talk about, where, when we read DC, there are very few consequences in the DC universe, the Marvel universe. We all know, Superman. I mean, Superman gets killed, then what is it, like 3, 4, 5 issues later he comes back? At least with Batman, and then I love Chuck Dixon. At least with Batman, when Batman was broken, there was a good 18 issues where we had a new Batman for a while.
Yeah, and then after Azrael, then you had when Batman did come back, he wasn't ready to be Batman anymore, so you had Dick take over the mantle for a while.
And so that's the thing that I think is super important about this, where there are real consequences here. And that this is why when I watched the video, it was actually sort of pissed me off a little bit, to be honest, because I'm like, wait a second, like, is nobody getting that this looks like Superman, but clearly this is going to go dark really quickly. It's like, it might look like red, white, and yellow and an S on the chest, but this is like Superman was born on Earth going dark.
Yeah.
And so like that's something that I think is super, super interesting about this in that way. And
also, like in the big two, whenever there's a new hero comes in, there's all these other heroes that they can learn from to say, to learn how to be. Well, he's the only one, so he learns from reading comic books. That's where his idea from reading Mega, and like I said, Mega was an old comic book from the 70s, 1979, in our world. It's from 1979. It only ran for 10 issues before it got canceled. So we got to touch on why it was canceled and things like that.
And so what is that like too? Because you mentioned it a few times.
That's a lot of people, like I've had people tell me that's very meta to put a comic book in the comic book. And actually one of the stretch goals, if we read it in the next 11 days, which who knows, maybe, but it's like at $4,000, you'll actually get a copy of Mega #1 along with Omni #1. And the way we're doing it, I have an artist who draws very similar to Jack Kirby. He has like a very old school feel. And so the whole book is going to look like a book from the 70s. I was thinking about doing newsprint, but that's just too difficult. Like it's a totally different process. So what I'm just going to do is actually make the book pages look like the 70s. So it's going to have like the color tabs at the top. They're going to be like yellowish brown, and it's going to be like kind of looks like wrinkles in the paper and stuff.
So I want to talk about that in a second, because I think that is also fascinating. But even this idea of having a comic book, and then obviously he's driving sort of some of his moral compass from a comic book. I love the concept. I think it's funny. I think it's meta, as you said. I also think that, it's very fitting, because it's kind of like, it adds, and I don't know if this was the intention, but it adds sort of an element of irony and humor into it as well, where
Yeah.
like we're sort of poking fun at the entire superhero genre throughout the
Yeah.
entire thing in many ways. I think people forget, like, comics are supposed to be fun. Even though we have a very serious situation going on, or getting there, we're still poking fun at it by, learning his superpowers, and the manual for him essentially is in a comic book.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I think it's very clever, and I think people who hate on it are just upset they didn't think of it first.
Maybe. I don't. It's kind of hard to get that idea unless you talk to me from just the Kickstarter, because I didn't want to give too much away in the Kickstarter. I want people to read the story and build to that as they read. Like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. So, there, like I said, every issue there's a little thing that you'll see that he does that. Even the way he becomes Omni is kind of sketchy, and it gives you the idea of how Floyd Miller really is in life. So
Yeah, I think through these 12 issues, we're gonna figure out
yeah,
exactly who he is, why he is, and I think in many ways it's going to be a reflection on humanity, more
yeah,
more so than just superpowers. Because I think a lot of superhero stuff, from my opinion, and my opinion has changed in the last few years, but a lot of it I think goes back to human nature,
yeah,
and I think this is just a more realistic viewpoint on it in many
exactly.
ways.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to put it in this world. Like, it's it takes place in Atlanta, Georgia. We didn't make up a city name. It takes um, the only thing that is made up is the news network that one of our characters work at. Instead of using CNN, so we didn't get in trouble, it's WTNN. And but the font is still the CNN um, font, and it's the CNN building that I drew into the comic. So
Well, we don't want to get you into too much trouble on that, and nor do I want to get in trouble. So we're just going to table that right there.
when I put the book out originally, and everyone's seen the name, everyone's like, "Oh, Kirkman already has a character named Omni in whatever that Incredible or whatever that book is." And I told him, I was like, "If Kirkman wants to come to after me for that character, he can go ahead because he ain't gonna get much." Like,
He'll probably make your character, if anything.
yeah,
Now, having said all that, I do want to talk about Mega, because I think this is super interesting, that stretch goal and that entire idea. Because what I think is awesome is this idea of you trying to play around with style and making it look old school. Because you got a book in your book essentially that you want to bring out to life,
yeah,
and obviously, and I don't know if you know this, but it's a really cool comic fact. I believe the first appearance of Hellboy was in a Dark Horse book. I think it might have been in Sin City as an advertisement, and it was paid for. It was
yeah,
either in Sin City or it was in another Dark Horse book before, and so that's the first official appearance of Hellboy. And so I just love the concept of throwing something in there and then launching something out of it, and then also you playing with like browning the pages and going newsprint maybe is a possibility, or even
yeah,
going with like old school stuff. And obviously, people now we're in an age in the comic industry where we can do a lot of cool shit
yep,
with
yeah.
comic books and making them look a certain way, and gatefold covers and glossed covers and other things. So where does that even come from, and what is that like, and what is it like that play with all that stuff, and you have that on the table, because that's an option. It's now what you want to do. So
Yeah, actually, it's when I started reading the scripts from LC, I just noticed that there was this comic book that he had placed in every book. Like, and I was like, well, since I have to show the covers in every all the time, I think it would be cool to actually make that book just as an add-on. Like, either if we don't fund this time, I mean, if we don't get that far, I will probably add it as an add-on for the next book. Um, and like, I'm trying to get a different writer maybe for each one, because I want them to be like a standalone story, but with an overarching story, kind of like they would be in the 70s. Like, you could pick up any comic book and jump right into it, and you wouldn't have to worry about, oh, I missed the last 20 issues or anything. You could just jump right in and then pick up from there, and that's kind of how we want to do it. So I'm waiting till if we get funded before I actually put that book. I'm actually going to do the cover. Like there's a cover that's in in Omni #1, but that's not going to be the cover. It was just kind of like a placeholder that I put in the art. And so there'll be a different cover. Like in the second book, there's another cover that you see you see that cover kind of early, and then they show the third cover in that book in issue 2 as well. And I have the second issue already written because when I found the cover that I wanted to use, like it just spoke to me, this story. So I went ahead and wrote the second story. But yeah, so trying to get maybe a different or just a rotation of creators. You know what I mean? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that.
I think it's really cool, and I think it's going to be a really interesting thing, and I also think it's going to be super, super awesome to have like it being launched out of this.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be an awesome add-on. I also think it sort of adds validity because this sort of goes along the theory of creating a universe, which I think is a new thing in comics, where I've seen it. Aaron Dowan has done it. Tyrone Jackson, I think, has done it from Silverse. Has created a universe, and a few other people are starting to create universes in their comics, and somehow they all interconnect with one another, whether it's like 900 years in the future or it's 300 years in the past, or this is happening in this part of the galaxy and that's happening in this part of the galaxy. And so I like the concept of that, and I think this is a really unique way to do it, where you have a comic book, if it gets funded, that has a relevance in the story and only adds further detail to it.
Exactly.
Perfect example is that I'm right now reading Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Kyoshi book. That book adds further detail to Avatar: The Last Airbender, even though it was written after it. It gives more contextual stuff. The Avatar graphic novels add more to that story. And there's graphic novels that took place during Avatar: The Last Airbender that are not necessary, but they give more context to it. And they build out the universe. And so I just think that that's a really cool concept, because now these comic books, especially Mega, is not going to interfere with Omni, but it play a massive role in it. And who's to say that somewhere down the line it's going to add more context, and it's also going to be, oh, now I get it. So I love the concept of it, and I think it's just such a unique way. I think this idea is going to be copied. I really do, because it's brilliant to take, almost you're like planting a book inside of your thing. It's so good. It's a free advertisement. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so I am kind of what I was hoping for. Like yesterday, we reached 75 backers, so I have some backer goals, and we unlocked a double-sided bookmark that I'm doing the work on. I was doing the art for yesterday. And the one side's Omni, and the back side's going to be Mega. So it's kind of giving you all, and all of my stuff, the bookmarks, we unlocked a set of 3 trading cards at 50 backers. All of that is original art. I'm not taking like art from the book and just putting it on a trading card. It's actually new art. So that's the only place you'll be able to get that art, is if you back the book on a physical level.
So let's talk about the stretch goal, since we're already on it. Obviously, you got a bookmark. I think you got a sticker. Obviously, trading cards are coming, and I think we're almost at another stretch goal, or did I miss one?
No. If we fund, then we're going to unlock a 4-page backstory. But the good thing is, if we fund, it also unlocks at least 2 more stories, because 2 more 4-page stories. Because I have a pledge goal where you could co-create a character, and then we'll do after we help create the character, we're going to do like a 4-page story to introduce that character to the world. So if we fund, we're automatically having 12 more pages at least in the book.
And so that's obviously, you're on trajectory. I think
Mhm.
you're 600,
Yeah,
give or take,
just under 700. We're at
away in like 11 days.
75% or 72%. Yeah, with like
And,
11
and,
days to
and
go.
this is the time where Kickstarters typically take a dip. Usually
Yeah,
it's the
well,
first week is hot and the last week is hot, and then the
yeah,
middle
it's
is
yeah, kind of
dip.
slow. Yeah,
It,
it's been slow.
it's just the way it is. Everybody's Kickstarter is very similar. Very few Kickstarters go up like this.
Yeah, unless
And
you're unless you have a name, and then your thing funds in
even
2 minutes.
even still, if I'll give a great example, and I don't think the president's going to mind. I just backed Jamie Kindle's "Miss Me Out" Merc
Mhm.
Mag. Thing funded great, hit 30,000 in like the first 4 days,
Yeah,
and then it hit I think 40,000 in the next 2 weeks. So it went from killing it, and it had a goal of $5,000. So
yeah.
obviously it had a great funding outing. And then in the last week, it went from 40 to 75,000, under
Oh
77,000.
yeah,
So clearly, in the last week, and in particular in the last 3 days, it did like 25K.
yeah. That's
So,
everyone says like the last 48 hours of a campaign, Kickstarter will start pushing your stuff. Like it'll show up on like the emails and things like that.
and so obviously that is sort of the trajectory of Kickstarter. But we're going to talk about Kickstarter because I got a million questions on that, and I like the business side of Kickstarter, all that stuff. But I do want to talk about the rewards that people can get
Mhm.
because there is a bunch of stuff. So obviously, the first thing I want to talk about is digital because
Yeah.
I think there was a debate in all these comic groups, and I'm sure you've seen it, and a lot of people seen it. And I'm always curious because a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I prioritize physical first," and
So
my
do I.
reaction is saying that is absolutely retarded. And I say that with no offense because the problem that I have with that is you're leaving money on the table.
Oh
It's not
yeah.
that physical shouldn't come first. It's that people weren't even offering digital. And
Oh.
I thought that was leaving massive amount of money on
Oh
the table.
yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I will rather back a physical book, but there have been some books that I've had to back digital because I wanted to back the creator, and I'm not afraid to tell everybody I live on disability, so I have a very small bit of money at a very small window of time. So I try to get it if something that ends like at the end of the month or right at the beginning of the month. That way I can get it. But if I've backed a lot of stuff already, and then I see another book I wanted, I'll $5-7 for the
So
digital.
I'm the opposite. It's not even an issue of money for me. It's that if I don't know what your book is, right? It looks cool. I don't know who you are. And I'm saying, oh man, you're giving me a $7 digital book. I could take a $7 risk.
I
Especially if your physical goal is $30.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's ridiculous. If it's more than 15, you can forget it. Like if it's just like a 24-page floppy, if it's more than $15, I will take a digital.
Unless there are exceptions. Like for instance, I'm a big Dawn Matique fan, and her variant is $20 on
Yeah.
Jamie Kimball's Kickstarter. But that's different because I'm buying the artist's book. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
not I'm buying something special. But my point that about digital and why I was very upset during that entire discussion with all these creators is I'm saying, wait a second, you want me to take a risk on your book? I've never heard of it. This thing looks cool, but you know what it is? It's like a $15 book, and you're telling me I can get it digitally for like $5. There's
Yeah.
a big difference between the two. And so I'll be happy to take a risk and bet on somebody's book and be like, oh man, this is cool. I'm going to get it digitally because I just want to read the story. And so that was my entire position on digital. When all these people were like, no, digital is bad and all this stuff, I'm like, wait, guys, like, don't
Yeah.
you want to earn me as a fan first?
Yeah, because then you can always come back and get the catch up on the next, or if you see them at a con or something, grab that
So
digital or
that's
that
how
book.
I viewed it. Is that and so and I just thought that it was crazy. And also, you know what is, I back international books.
Oh yeah, and then yeah.
I just backed a book from Canada, Corey Hardyman, and I backed the physical stuff because I wanted the covers because they look awesome. But that shipping was like $22. It's a
Yeah.
lot of money in shipping. The book itself that I backed was like 48. So the shipping is half the cost
Yeah.
plus the book. So I just dropped like, I think it was like $68 or $67 for the entire thing. It's a relatively expensive Kickstarter for $22 shipping.
Yeah.
So it's just
yeah. I forget what I was going to say. I mean, my problem is a lot of times I'll back digital stuff and then I forget about it, and I never open the email, and it sits there and sits there. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't open this book and download it. And a lot of people do them as PDFs, and I like to read on my tablet. My tablet doesn't really like PDFs for some reason.
I mean, I also I love PDFs. I also love digital, especially because I get it instantly.
Yeah.
And I get it relatively quickly. So when a Kickstarter's done and it's ready to be sent out, I get my, digital file also, and then I don't have to open up my books.
Yeah.
So having said all that, I know that I think you just said that you prefer to do physical stuff, and I get it.
I'm old. I like going into the comic book store and actually picking up a comic book. Yeah.
I like ordering my comics online, but I like my physical books too. And so I know you have a bunch of physical rewards out there. And I'm just going to start naming some stuff. And feel free to stop me anytime to tell any story you would like. We got the regular cover A. We got a blank cover. We got a Komet cover. We got
the Greg Komet cover. He actually did that line art. I did a Kickstarter for this almost 4 years ago. It failed terribly. And he drew that art for me back then, and just for free. He just did it, and I totally forgot about it till I was going through some old files of the old book and I found it. I was like, oh, well. So I ended up getting it inked. The person inked it for free for me, just if I would push their book because they had a book on Indiegogo. So I did that, and then I put it out asking for people to color it. See how much they charge me, because I'm a colorist too, and I realized I charge way too little for my coloring, because people were wanting like as much as it would cost for a page of interior art to color it, and I was like, I'll just do it myself. I can color.
So they even talk about that, and we're going to talk about coloring in a second, because I know nothing about coloring. I legitimately know nothing about art in general, as far as how to draw. I mean, I can draw stick figures. And
that's what everyone says. Everybody can draw. It all depends on, you have to just find your audience. Look, I see some of that stuff that's put out by Marvel and DC, and I'm like, this is crap. Like, how did this person get a job? But and I've been saying that since the '90s. So.
But even talking about this book, so obviously this one is up, and there's the regular version, and there's also the Virgin cover, and so that's kind of cool in many ways. And obviously that's a fun story right there, that you have something that's old school, really didn't cost you much to throw out there, and then you're just
actually didn't cost me anything. Yeah, I got lucky and had me and Greg have worked on stuff together before, and he just drew that for me for like a fan art like 4 years ago or something. And I was like, you mind if I use that for a cover? He's like, no, go ahead. All right.
And so what is that like to have that story and have something that was done for you fan wise, and then get to use it, and then get to use what you sort of envisioned in that way? Because it's kind of cool in many ways how something that was private has now become public.
Yeah. I like I said, I totally forgot about it. So when I found it, I was like, this is cool. And obviously it shows the villain from the first book, the Melting Man. So that's actually the second superpowered being we find in the first book. So I just thought it was perfect for a variant cover. because I try to get art that's not just all mine. Like that's like terrible. Like I said, it's hard for me to afford people to do the art, and so uh, if I can get anything for free, and like I tell people all the time, I'll do art trade. I've drawn a lot of fan art for other people, um, and I will gladly draw something for your Kickstarter if your artist draws something for me.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too, which I'm not going to name names on people who do trades and stuff, but I've noticed that a lot of people have done trades on a lot of different stuff in this community, and it works great because obviously everybody's happy because a bunch of people have skills in the Kickstarter world, a bunch of people in the community I'm in the interview world where like I know a bunch of people, they know a bunch of people, and we trade,
Yeah.
contacts, and everybody's happy because it's just everybody's benefiting. And so I noticed that's happened a lot more. I think it's going to continue to happen a lot more
Yeah.
because it just works out that way. And then the other cover versions you have is the Curtis covers.
Yeah, Brian Curtis, he's a good friend of mine. He's actually doing the art on another book of ours called Future Force, which is kind of like a Teen Titans-esque. It's like a teenager group of superheroes. Like I said, most of our stuff at Hooligan is superhero based. So he's been working on that for me for a while. We're just doing a trade. I mean, like doing it as a graphic novel or a trade. It's going to be like
You're
4 or
doing
5
that to
issues long.
OGN is what it is.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, an OGN is an original graphic novel.
Graphic novel, yeah, and it'll continue because I actually have I don't know how many issues written of that, and so it'll just be out as volumes of graphic novels.
And since we're on that topic, we're going to take a detour. So, what is that like versus, creating an original graphic novel, doing it in that? Because in the comic world, there is definitely a shift going on, and there's still single issues, but a lot of people and a lot of kids are going to cons now, saying, "Hey, this is my first, comic," and it's a 6-issue or 5-issue graphic novel, and it's written by some of the best in the business. But it's not a single issue. Hey, can you sign it?
Yeah.
That's a shift that's happening where a lot more people are now interested in having 5 issues in one. Zenescope is changing and having doing a lot more one shots and having more content in one story versus having a 22 pager or a 24 pager. They're interested in having like a 44 pager, which. I think they're half right and half wrong because I think it's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that the entire the entire industry is changing where people want more story. And so what was that like? And even from a story component and even from a printing component, because it is different.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously costs more, so the Kickstarter will have to be more. But when I actually wrote I'd say Fantastic Four. See, that's how bad my head.
Yeah, I didn't know you were Fantastic Four.
Future Force. When we
were
doing, when I wrote Future Force, I wrote it as single issues, and but then I decided that because I have so much other stuff going on, it would probably be easier just to do a graphic novel. Like I said, I had Omni on Kickstarter like almost 4 years ago now, and it failed miserably. And so the reason it didn't come back right away,
talk about that too, I promise.
The reason I waited so long because I figured, you know what, I'm just going to put them out as 3 graphic novels. But then it just kept taking forever. Like, I was putting it off, and so then in the fall of 2020, I just asked some other guys who had, done Kickstarters in both floppy and graphic novels, which is better. And some people said they think a graphic novel does better because people want the complete story. Well, I'm thinking, well, mine ain't got a complete story. Like, you're going to get the first 4 issues of the story. You're not going to get, it's still to be continued at the end of those 4 issues. And I wasn't waiting until all 12 would be done and then try to do an omnibus that's going to be this thick and have to charge, my goal being $20,000-$40,000. So someone else had told me that they think doing single issues is better because it lets you gradually build your audience to till you get to that graphic novel, and then you can do like issue 4 and the graphic novel at the same time. So people who have got the floppies, they can pick up issue 4, or if somebody who hasn't, they can go ahead and get the graphic novel. So.
Yeah, no. It's. I think this is such an interesting divide in the community because it is something that is definitely.
It's all preference. That's what it is.
It's being debated. It's preference. It's also this idea that I think a lot of people in the comic community that they go to a Barnes and Noble, for instance, and they pick up a graphic novel. And I think people want, in many ways, a whole story right now, more so.
Yeah.
And that a lot because I'll give a great example. So I was actually at Barnes and Noble on Friday, and I picked up a graphic novel, and I picked up a manga book. I could read manga every week, but I would rather wait 3 months and read 10 chapters because I'm like, oh man, I want to read the whole thing. Like I want a bigger chunk of the pie, and so I just backed the Kickstarter Curse Words. I read the first, issue of Kickstarter. I got a special edition. It's a really cool book. Ryan Brown sketched in it for free. Super cool. Super nice guy. And he left no room for Charles to draw on it, which was really funny. It's a funny story. Charles, it was at a comic shop, and there's a whole story, but I can't tell the other half of it publicly because it'll embarrass somebody really badly. It's a funny story to the people there, though. And then I met a cute girl who was also there getting something signed too, who was from college. But it was a good day. We're going to leave it at that, everybody. But my entire point is that I picked up the entire thing because I want the whole story. I didn't want to read curse words in piecemeal. It didn't do it for me in piecemeal. But when I get it, it's a whole 32 issue book. So that's how I view it. But I think it's so interesting what's going on because I think some things really do lend themselves really well. And I have a feeling that this book that you're releasing as a graphic novel is going to lend itself better than something like Omni. Because I don't think Omni is I think
with Future Force, I mean, it does have an end. That's why we're ending it there. But it's going to continue. Like there's other graphic novels. So, I mean, you'll get the complete first story arc. Whereas with Omni, it being a 12-issue maxi series, if you just stop it at issue 4, like if I just put out that, it would feel like, okay, where's the rest of it? Like
it would be a cliffhanger.
Finish the story, whereas doing it as floppies, I can put one out because I'm so far ahead of the curve. Like I said, I've got issue 2 done, issue 3 is almost done, issue 4 just needs a couple of last pages and start coloring on it, and so I can almost do it quarterly and bring out one. And while I can work on the other book.
With Omni, and it's just business, is that before issue 5 comes out, you can build a graphic novel.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Release it, and then you can have the graphic novel as a reward on issue 5 as a jumping on point.
Yeah, and also when we do the graphic novel, there's going to be extra stuff, obviously, that you didn't get in the floppies and things like that. So,
and it's very different. In which there's a whole business model with graphic novels that are just very different, and it's super interesting on Kickstarter. But we're so far out of the rewards that I want to get back into it. And so the other thing that you're offering is also limited edition signed and numbered copies, which are super cool.
Yeah,
you're also offering
there's only 25 of those, and it'll be signed by myself and Elsie Holt.
Those are cool. There's also director cut stuff that's coming, and sketch covers that you're doing, which is super cool. So if you like sketch covers and you like supporting indie comic people, this is cool. I like that idea a lot, and I wish more creators would do it because I like when I get sketch stuff cool and also fun stuff. And how is the sketch stuff going to work? Because I'm interested in that because you're the artist. In case
whenever I've already ordered. Well, once the Kickstarter is done, I'll order along with the orders. I'll order the sketchbooks, and I'll just contact the person and see what they want, and go from there. And then it'll be shipped. You also get like a regular cover. And I try to do with all of my rewards, you get everything that's behind it. So that's the way.
As far as the sketch, goes, somebody could pretty much get any character they want, right?
Yeah. It's going to be, I think, it's just going to be black and white with very minimal background because I'm not going to like go all Brett Booth and put a bunch of stuff in the background and be crazy because I don't work that as fast as he does. But also, I didn't even think about it. One of the backer goals is if we get to 125 backers for the physical backers, they're going to get an actual sketch card, a unique sketch card that I'll actually sketch. And the other day I happened to think about that. I was like, if I get 125 backers, I got to sketch 125 cards. So I'm like, that's gonna be like, I'll just be sitting there for days. And I was like, there's only so many characters in the book, and there's only so many poses that you can use. But if we get to 125, I'll be happy to do that.
Well, that's when you have to repeat in different colors.
Yeah,
and use crayons too.
Yeah.
But I digress. I have a story about that as well, but I digress. And then also you are offering, obviously you can create a villain, and 4-page story is a goal. And I think there's one left on that one, and then there's also drawn into a comic is also an option, which is cool. And I've seen that with others. And obviously, I'm assuming also with the draw into comic, you could draw somebody else into a comic.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be you. It could be anybody you want. It could be your dog if you wanted to.
If you want to give a gift, everybody, this is kind of one of those cool things that you can give. And, and I don't know if there's a single guy or a guy wants to propose, I'm sure that's on the table too. So it would be pretty cool. I'll just throw that idea out for anybody who's watching this,
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? Because I like those rewards a lot as well. And then I think there's a few more that I might have missed as well.
Yeah, like I have some like collector's sets where you get like all the covers and all the other stuff. There's other ones like a virgin one, so you get everything, and then there's the virgin ones where you add you can get a sketch cover. With the create a character ones, that's actually a lot of people don't realize what that entails because you'll actually get a co-creator credit in the books that character shows up in. So when you go to cons and things like that, you'll be able to say that you are a comic creator and get that comic creator badge. Also, because L.C. Holt does make movies. Right now, he's filming a movie in Canada called Time's Up. He has made 5 or 6 movies. So there is a chance if this does well that he could option it to be a movie or make it himself. And if your character shows up in the movie, then you get a payout for that. So it's not just helping me create a character that's going to show up in a comic book one time. It's a recurring character. And you'll be able, like I said, there's more than just making the character.
And also, just to throw things out there on the other side, you can technically sign now on these books CGC-wise. You can technically get into CBCS's registry. And so obviously there's a lot of other stuff on the business investment side that's more my wheelhouse, where now you are technically part of something, and then you can get on the registry, you can sign. There's a variety of cool stuff that you can do because you created that or co-created that character. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. And I'm going to take an assumption here. It is a co-creation process.
Yeah, a co-creator.
Meaning that obviously there's going to be emails and discussions and positions.
We'll discuss like what you want, what the character, how it'll fit into our universe, because not all characters fit in. Oh, excuse me. And there's no like limit. There's a limit. You can only have one, but to whether it's going to be a male character, a female character, that's up to you. An alien, whatever.
I'm going to just throw out an idea here. if you want your character to have a green mohawk and then have red eyes, that is fair game.
Yep.
Just saying, and then have like blue lips, completely fair game, guys. Just throwing it out there, you know.
And then we'll have to like actually get into the character, because I know I've sold two backers have taken the villain in one of those, so we're gonna have to get together and figure out their backstory a lot, like so that way, when I hire the writer to write those 4-page stories, they'll have an idea what that character's about.
But it's pretty open. Is my point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince. I'm trying to sell here. So if you want all these options, everybody,
and you also get an 11x17 sketch of your character once we have it created. I will do like a 11x17 sketch for it, and every comic book that your character is in, you'll keep receiving comp copies of the books that character's in.
And then somewhere down the road in 20 years, you could be Neil Gaiman and J.W. Sims will be Todd McFarlane. So
or I'll be dead and my son will be running the company.
I'm just saying, that lawsuit was all about co-creation characters.
Yeah.
But I know so much comic history, it's a problem. No, nobody will be suing anybody. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Not unless you name him Superman, like with a dash in the middle or something. No.
But I digress completely. So now I actually do want to talk a lot about Kickstarter because I think this is super interesting. Obviously, there's all these rewards, and I want to table this for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to talk about Kickstarter because Kickstarter has changed in the last, I would say, year extensively.
Oh yeah.
It's a different beast for a variety of reasons. I think the most obvious reason is COVID-19 hit, and COVID-19 took away cons. We're going to talk about that also. And obviously, there were some Kickstarters that happened at the start of the year, and then there was almost a Kickstarter drought in many ways.
Yeah, and at the beginning, like in the spring, there wasn't many going because people weren't planning on going to Kickstarter. Like they had their books like taking them to cons or whatever.
And so what was that like? Because I know you haven't necessarily created many Kickstarters, but you're an indie comic creator. Mm-hmm. You're an indie person. You go to cons. And what was that entire experience like? Because Kickstarter and con don't necessarily, one is not dependent on the other, but they are definitely symbiotic relationships. They work in conjunction with each other very well, and they play off of each other very well in a variety of ways. And obviously, they follow the same path as well in many ways too. So what was that entire thing like for you and the industry? Because I'm an outsider looking in because I haven't done a Kickstarter yet.
Like when we realized that, because 2020 was going to be my year. Like before that, I would go to cons. I did a few here and there. Most of the time when I went, it was as a cosplayer because my best friend she was a cosplayer, so we went as cosplayers. So 2020, I had said in 2019, 2020 is the year where I made the list of all the cons I'm going to, and I started like reaching out and paying my thing, and then in March they just stopped, like one by one.
Essentially, just to give an idea here, what happened in March, for those who don't know, and if you don't know, I mean, you've been living under a rock. Exactly. Emerald City Comic Con basically was up in the air whether it was going to go or not go, and they pulled out like 2 days ahead, and then they said they were going to do it in the summer, and then WonderCon was sort of the next one, and they were also flipping floppy, and then they pulled out, and ultimately cons like Awesome Con, and then all these cons slowly started pulling out, and then the next big question came in 2020 was San Diego, and then San Diego pulled out, and that was pretty much it. And then the next question was New York Comic Con, but all these cons said, "Oh, we're going to do it in August." they basically stopped and said, we're not doing it. And then a bunch of cons said, we're going to do it in December. And they made it clear they're not doing it in December either. So obviously, that's kind of the trajectory. And that brings us up to today. And I'm pretty sure Emerald City's not going to happen.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see any. I mean, there's been some little cons. I know there's one today in Florida that some of my friends went to, just a little con.
Let's just name who was there. Was it Travis Gibb?
No, I don't think Travis went because he's very.
I love Travis. I love
Travis. Travis is my brother. Put it that like. When I was ready to give up on comics, he had let me broke down 4 Dead Bodies, and it kind of. When I got that when he sent me my comp copies and it had my name on it, that was like the first book that actually had my name on it. Now, before I got sick back in 2013, 2014, I started working for DC Comics, but I was doing like uncredited stuff, because when you start, I was doing flatting, I was doing like some ad work, coloring ad work and stuff for them. And then when I got sick with cancer 4 years ago, I kind of just dropped everything. And Travis got a hold of me to broke down 4 Dead Bodies, do the coloring on that. And when I got that book and actually had my name on it, I was like, and it's not a book that I did. Now I've done my own books, had my name on it, but that's your book. But to have
your name on it if you did,
right? Like, to have somebody else, like a book that somebody else did, and to have my name on it, I was just like, wow, that's like, it felt good.
So since we're on the topic, let's talk about Travis. I love Travis. I'm taking a shot at Travis because he's great. He's been on twice. He's been very nice to me, collectively. And I like what he does. Cthulhu Invades Oz just came out.
I was on that too. I did a 2-page, colored 2 pages in that.
And so obviously broke down in 4 Dead Bodies. I thoroughly enjoyed that. We get a situation that's just crazy in that book. I don't want to ruin it because I want people to actually read it. Yeah. It's a crazy story. What am I trying to? You know what is? Think Kangaroo Jack, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, think Kangaroo Jack meets.
It's a very Quentin Tarantino-esque book.
Yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino. It's almost like Pulp Fiction meets Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a good way to put it, with a little bit of racial tension in it and some gangsters.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good way how to put it, right?
Yeah, if you like crime stories, you love it. I mean, that's Travis's baby. He likes crime, so like that's his bread and butter there. And
except this one is Kangaroo Jack style. It's great. Yeah. It's the best way how to describe it. Is that it's really like Quentin Tarantino.
Well, I'm going to tell you now. I'm not going to ruin it for you because I've done some colored pages for issue 4.
He ruined it for me already.
Well, did he? Issue 4 gets real crazy. I'm just saying.
And also, just to give something that's a little bit more in detail without ruining too much, there is more to this universe.
He's working on another book called Broke Down and Tapped Out, which is going to be a wrestling story. It's going to be a one-shot.
There's some more shit coming, and I don't think that's a secret. Whatever happens in issue 4, I'll explain. It's about a girl, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I said, oh my God, there's finally a female in the book. It only took you 4 issues.
It's about a girl.
That's all men.
And then there's another story, and then there's going to be a third part. From what I know, when that all comes out, I don't know. But obviously there's a bunch of stuff going on with it. But I digress. So getting back to Kickstarter, because actually I'll ask this since we're on the topic. So obviously, what was that like? Really coloring all that stuff, because you did a bunch of work. So what was that interesting like? Because obviously, Broke Down is really interesting, and from what I know, it's done very well.
Yeah, it's a different coloring style than I would usually use because I have lots of different coloring styles that I've learned. So I tried to make it more less, well, I guess more or less. Let me say less colorful and bright. It's kind of very desaturated, kind of. I used really like hard cuts in the colors and stuff, so it's not overly. What's the word I'm trying to think? I always screw up this word, but it's not overly colored. Like there's not a whole lot of special effects. And
It's stark, maybe.
yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of words also, because obviously the way I do it is that I don't find like it's not colored richly, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mean that it's not colored
Now,
thoroughly.
one thing I do appreciate in the second issue is when I was really dealing with my cancer, and I was slacking on the book like really hard. So I just did colored the pages of like the main characters and the police because I told them I'm going to do these pages that way they look the same, like it's very consistent, and then you can go ahead and hire someone else to finish the book, and which he did. And in issue 3, 4, I just colored the flashback parts of the book, but I know he had, I think it was in issue 3 or maybe issue 4. I don't know. He posted like an actual colored image, and I told him I was like, I really appreciate that you had the colors like keep my coloring style and my color palette and stuff. And he said that was like one of the things they had to do is to match my coloring style and stuff, so it wasn't like a big shock when you flip the page, like to something someone else colored. It's not this big like change.
So even to talk about this, because I know nothing about coloring, I know nothing about flatting. I don't even know what flatting is. I mean,
Flatting is the
I know.
hardest. Flatting is the hardest job in comics. I'm going to tell you right now.
So I know what flatting is as far as sort of boxing out certain things, essentially. From my understanding, I don't know anything beyond that. I know the purpose is that it makes the colors job easier.
Yeah, yeah.
It allows you to color, but I don't
But I
know.
always tell everybody, like, as somebody who is an artist and a colorist, when I draw something like a big battle scene, say, and there's like rocks and dirt flying up, and when I'm drawing it, I can just put in all these little circles and all these little marks and stuff. But now when I come back and I have to flat it, I have to redraw all those, and I can't do it haphazardly. Like when I drew it, I actually have to stay within the lines of all of that, and it's really a pain in the butt that way. So I see why artists will use a
So
flatter.
what is flatting? Because I actually
It's what they used to call
explain the
color
process.
separating.
So before we get too deep, explain the process of drawing something and then how does it get flatted and how does it get colored? Because that's something that I think people don't know. And I don't think people have an appreciation for it because I stare at a comic book cover and I'm like, how the fuck did this get made? Right? Like,
Yeah, the art's pretty
usually you get a
self-explanatory.
penciler, right?
Yeah, you have a penciler and they draw it. Or if you have like someone who works in digital, a lot of times they just ink their own stuff because it's just you're doing it
Faster,
digitally, so you
easier.
could just and so then it has to go to a flatter next, and the flatter will take the page, and they will everything that's one color. So let's say like you're doing the person. So like for me, they would have to actually go in the line art and use the lasso tool and outline, say, the black rim of my hat, like, and then they just drop a color in. It doesn't have to be black. It doesn't have to be. It's just a random color. You just pick it and drop it in. And then the same thing. They'll have to go up here like and break this down to its colors, and then the hat, and then the flesh, and then the hair, and it's you break it and you just throw in a random. I don't want to say. I guess it's not random, but you don't have to put the yellow in here. You don't have to put red on this part of the shirt. It's just a color that's so everything that's that color has to be that same flatting color. So when I, as an artist, come in and I get the flats back, I can just use like the magic wand tool and click on that color and it'll select it all. And then I can change it to the color it has to be. And then I can do all the shading and whatever else that needs done. But I do a lot of my own flatting and I scream at myself when I draw something stupid. Like I'm like, why did I do it this way?
there's a lot of cover artists who do their own flatting
Yeah.
and do their own stuff, and they draw digitally.
But the problem is, like when you look in a comic book, chances are the flatter never gets any recognition. The only
Very
time
few
you,
flatters, very
and
few who have gotten credit.
yeah, if they do, they're never called a flatter. They'll be colorist, coloring assistant, or something like that. And their names usually, like, you'll have the colorist, and their name is like this big under the colorist. So, yeah, flatting is not fun, but it's like the most painstaking and probably important job, aside from actually drawing it. But before a colorist, because I mean, you can take hours flatting something. I mean, literally, it takes forever.
So now, this was a complete detour from my entire point of we were talking about with Kickstarter. So obviously, Kickstarter has changed, and so
Mm-hmm.
getting back to the question is a nice tangent. How do you feel it has changed all throughout 2020? Because obviously, conventions have changed, and obviously there's that Kickstarter drought. So what was that like for you as a publisher?
Um,
Because
yeah, like at first we kept like there wasn't much on Kickstarter, like you said, because we kept holding out, like, oh, because everyone kept telling us, oh, couple weeks this will be gone, couple weeks this will be gone, in the summer this will be gone. And I think it was like probably the middle of summer, especially when the big cons started canceling. A lot of creators realized that, one, they have all the time in the world now because they're not going to cons every weekend, they're not doing this, and they need to make money. Like, I have several artist friends who are artists, and that's how they make their money, is going to cons, doing commissions and things like that. So they started doing Kickstarters, just to like get their books out and to make a little bit money on the side, because they needed to live. And I think now, because of that, I think the comics part of Kickstarter has really taken off. I mean, you see some creators making $40,000-$50,000 off their Kickstarter, and so I don't think this time last year that would have happened. Unless,
yeah,
of course, unless they have a big name like Brian Paludo and his. I always butcher people's names, so that might have been. But like his Lady Death book, it always makes bank. Like, even when he had cons to go to, he still his Kickstarters always made a lot of funds.
yeah. And
But
I
now
also think
it's these people like us who are the smaller indie creators. Like I say, like at the Cthulhu Invades Oz, like that did $26,000, and it's all indie creators, small indie creators on that book.
so to even talk about that, because obviously indie lives at cons.
Mhm.
Barely though. It's a whole complicated thing where obviously conventions and convention politics and where indie creators are put is a nightmare. But obviously, we have a lot of big players now coming into Kickstarter. We had Keanu Reeves come in. We had Scott Snyder, and obviously there's been a lot of sides on that, meaning that obviously Boom is doing Power Rangers on Kickstarter. We
Yeah,
got books at like 500,000 or pretty
yeah,
close to it. And so I don't know how exactly you feel, because at the same time, and this is my take, is that I believe that everybody can play on Kickstarter.
oh yeah, I mean, I believe that, but also you have like Boom. Those books were already out. Like the art's already done. Like they've been like they don't need Kickstarter to print those. Like,
Yeah, so this is my question to you, is that how do you feel about it? Because
I
obviously,
I
if
don't
you
like big comic book companies coming on the Kickstarter, like the Scott Snyder thing. Like, him and Tony Daniels are doing that book, and they're put it on Kickstarter, but it was coming out from Image like this month or something, or next month.
it's coming
So
out, I think, in March,
yeah,
and
but
I
so
think,
it's.
yeah.
I mean, the only thing you got was this like a little extra, part at the end, and I was like, I'll just wait and get it from a local comic book store in March. You know what I mean? Like, it just,
Yeah, I
I don't.
think just to talk about that. So I think that to some degree, I get the Keanu Reeves stuff. I get the Boom stuff. I like the fact that, look, as with the Power Ranger books, in many ways, it's a pre-order form for Boom. Let's call it what it is. But at the same time, I don't think that the Keanu Reeves and the Power Ranger and even Scott's book took money necessarily away from small indie people, but I think it did some damage where it definitely created a little bit of a separation. It also was sort of a snub, I think, but more so than damage. I think it was like, you guys built the house of indie, and then we're now coming in, and now this is our sandbox too. And it was, I don't want to say it was a bullying move, because I don't think it was bullying, but I think it was also saying, hey, this is our house now. You guys built it, and now we're going to take it over. We're going to bring a lot more people in who are the big lead. And
but my thing is, yeah, they brought a lot of people to Kickstarter, but just like others, like those people are coming for that book. Chances are they're not going to stick around and look at our books. Like they're coming and they're getting that, and they're all right, I got my Power Rangers thing, and then they log off. So it. I ain't saying it took money, like people say, oh, it brought in people who are just coming to get that. Who know? Maybe at another time, maybe they will back your stuff, but right now they came in for the Power Rangers book, and that's it. Like that's.
I take the position that we opened up Pandora's box. What we don't know is we don't know what the side effects are. Where the side effects could be great in the comic world. It could be the greatest thing in the world. It could also be the world's worst thing, meaning that we don't know. And that's the problem with all these big names coming in doing, $1 million, doing, $300,000, is that what are the side effects of this? And even going off COVID, what are the side effects of COVID? And I don't mean the virus, I mean from a business standpoint of Kickstarter, because now when this Kickstarter, in my opinion, has always been that I got this cool idea for a project and I have $2,000 aside, but I need another 8,000, and that I need to raise money, and a bunch of people might like this idea too, and they want to get this book. I want to produce it, and this is what happens. And then essentially now I get the production of the book done, and now I can share it, and I'm happy. But I felt that happened on Kickstarter, and this is just me looking in, and my observation is that people said, great, I can make a fuckload of money on Kickstarter now. And that I can now treat this as a business and not as developing a cool product. That's just a byproduct. And
I mean, there's lots of people who do that. Like I see it all the time. They just use it as a way to pre-order their books. I guess that's the best way.
I think though that's becoming more the norm. And my issue is that I think it's veered away. And I'm not saying everybody does that, but now what I think is that I think it's become very much a way to do that, and it's a problem because it's exactly what Kickstarter was not meant to do. And then when all these big names come in and that's what they're doing, that justifies all of the creators doing it, and it becomes very, very complicated. And so obviously I'm looking in, and it's a lot more complicated than that, and I'm open for disagreement and on that, and I'll take the flack from everybody else, but that's what I've noticed, is that it's now being treated like a business and not as funding like cool comic projects.
Oh yeah, I mean there are still people using it that way. I see many of them that they need to go to Kickstarter just to be able to pay the artist so they can get their book done. One of the very first books I backed on Kickstarter, I'm still waiting for, because he's waiting for art from whatever, and I'm like, this has been like over 2 years, and I'm still waiting for it.
So I think it's very interesting with all the big names coming in and all that. So that obviously it's very tricky, where I believe everybody can play, but I also believe that we don't know the consequences. And everybody says, oh, it's great that Keanu Reeves came in. And I'm like, yeah, I agree that it's great. But you also have to understand that in 2 years from now, if there are adverse consequences, you also said it was great at the same time. So, it's something that it's very tricky, but I also believe that it is because the problem is that whenever corporations come into anything, people who are not fans of Kickstarter or who are not fans of WWE come into WWE, they fuck it up.
Yeah.
People who are fans of Kickstarter who come into Kickstarter don't screw it up because it's their pool to play in. When you come into somebody else's pool, you fuck it up. It's just the way it is. When you don't know the rules of that person's pool, I think is the greatest way to say it.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about religion.
I'm
kidding.
We're skipping over politics? Come on.
So the other controversial topic I want to talk about with you is conventions, because obviously you said 2020 was going to be your year, and obviously cons are also very much broken at the moment. Where I mentioned it, San Diego didn't happen, Emerald City Comic Con, New York Comic Con. I think it's a safe bet that San Diego is not going to happen this year. I think it's a relatively safe bet to take that. And if I'm wrong, I'll happily be wrong on it.
I have a feeling that the big cons are really going to change. Like, we're not going to have like San Diego Comic Con where there's tens of thousands of people packed in shoulder to shoulder anymore. Like, it's going.
Do you think it's going to be more like maybe 25,000 or 30,000?
I look for them to. Well, I don't even know, like, because I've never been there. I know it's not much of a Comic Con anymore.
So I've been to New York Comic Con once,
and it's crazy.
It's crazy. I went to Anime Boston. I'm more of an anime guy, and I like Comic Cons too. Actually, I used to be more of an anime guy. I'm more of a Comic Con guy. And Anime Boston is insane. The entrance point, that is crazy, because you have 25,000 people, give or take, which is what Anime Boston does, and maybe they sell like 23,000 tickets. It's a lot of fucking people. So getting into the con on Friday takes like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Just to get into the entrance.
No, like, at the end of this month, Garden State Comic Con in New Jersey is having their con on the 28th, the 20th and 30th, something like that, 31st, and they're not taking, like, you have to pay cash when you get there. You can't pre-order. That way they can control how many people go in. So everyone has to pay for cash. You all have to have masks, and it's much smaller and it's spread out. It's like in an old department store, so it has 2 floors, and it's like in a mall, and it's all spread out. And I just think that's the way it's going to be for a while. Like, if cons come back, they're going to be smaller. It's going to be more controlled how many people go in. I mean, because I've been to little cons, like Steel City Con in Pittsburgh. It runs 3 times a year. And on Saturdays, you feel like you're packed in. Like, it's just crazy because they have a lot of celebrities. It's not much of a Comic Con anymore. It never really was. It used to be a toy show is what it originally was. When I started going, you'd go to get parts for your G.I. Joe guys and stuff like that. But then they started adding celebrities and stuff, and that's kind of like what it is now.
So to talk about con economics, so this is also my area of expertise. I have an entire article on my website all about this. So I'm going to break this down in the simplest way, and I'm curious your opinion. So way cons work, everybody, is that celebrities are the driving factor to sell tickets. So a celebrity has what is known as a guarantee. So every autograph and every photo counts against their guarantee. That guarantee could be 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Now, they don't pay for anything, and the con guarantees them money. So everything they sell, so if they sell their autograph for $50, that counts against their guarantee. Now, if they sell $100,000, the con pays them nothing. If they sell $110,000, they keep all the money. Con takes none of their money, essentially, and they get $110,000, and they're happy because it's no complaint. They sell $90,000, the con pays them $10,000.
Yep. Yeah.
And so now this is my issue with it, is that because I think cons are going to be also smaller, which means that either guarantees have to go down because there's less traffic. Autographs have to go up if guarantees can't go down. And then the third thing that's the problem, or less celebrities are going to be there, and that means there's less choice and less drive and less traffic being given to you. And then thirdly, or fourthly now, if you can't take a photo with a celebrity, that's $50. Because of all this, that counts with their guarantee. All of a sudden, you know what is? That means that they're going to have to sell more autographs with that, with limited attendance. There's only one option how to solve that problem, because there's only two options. Their guarantee has to come down lower, or their price has to go up higher.
Yep.
And so congratulations, now everything just became more expensive.
Yeah.
So now you bring $1,000 to a con in 2018, that $1,000 would get you, 8 autographs. Now it's going to get you 5.
Yeah.
That's a big reduction. And so
I also think with how DC did that DC whatever at the end of summer, like their virtual con.
That nightmare, the nightmare virtual con.
I actually enjoyed it. I watched it. I sat here at my computer the whole day and just watched the whole thing. And I just have and you can see it now. That's kind of how the celebrity parts of cons are going, where you can pay so much and you can do a Zoom call with them. Or
they're not doing great. They're doing very roughly.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's extremely rough. Wizard World is struggling tremendously.
Wizard World can
suck it.
I'm not a fan of Wizard World at all.
So here's the problem: is that GalaxyCon is trying to do it, and they're doing okay, but they're pushing really heavily, and they're doing them, with like the cast of Naruto and Boruto, and like they're doing them almost every month, and I don't think they have the demand. I don't think they do, because the whole point is that right now you and me are speaking, right? And I mean, I get celebrities for like an hour or 2 hours sometimes for free, and it's a one-on-one conversation, and people want to be interviewed, and I think people want long-form conversations, and I think that people don't want to spend $60 on this. Not to mention that money's getting tighter.
Oh yeah, no.
And so I think it's the exact opposite. I think also people want indie. Like, I'd rather give you $60 than give somebody who's in the thing for a 3-minute conversation. If it was a 10-minute conversation, I'll give an example, and this is going to go dark, and I don't know how PG you want to go, but, and I'm not saying I do this, but, I can go book a camp session with a porn star for cheaper than some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
20 minutes. It's not even a joke. Like, legitly, it's like $3 a minute. My point is that, and one of them is a lot more attractive than the other. And I say this very, 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 because my point is that, it's a real issue. That's why they're failing. It's too expensive.
Oh, yeah.
You're giving me 3 minutes with somebody for like $80. Like, for $80, I can go and have an hour-long conversation with a porn star while she's naked. Just saying. And I don't say this to be mean or rude or be an asshole when I say it. And I say it because it's true.
Yeah.
It's too expensive.
But then you still have people who love their celebrity and love certain people, and they'll pay it just to get to be on a Zoom call with them. So I mean it might not be as much, but you're still getting people who are doing it. But yeah, we have a con, like Steel City Con, it was supposed to be in April, and they moved it back to September. Now they always have 3 a year, so they just moved all the guests to the September one. Well, in September they moved it to December, and I remember them on their Facebook page asked if they have it in December, would people be interested in going? And I said I would, just to get back to a sense of normalcy. And I got attacked. They're like, "Oh, you think having masks and stuff on is normal?" I was like, "No, I meant being able to go out of my house and have fun. It's something. Who cares if you can only have 100 people or 200 people in at a time? I just want to get back to being able to do stuff."
And so to even go off of that point, because obviously we got on a tangent, but I think it was a worthwhile tangent. One of the things that I'm curious at what you think is, where do you think the solution is to solve this, and when do you think it's going to be solved, and what do you think the answer is? Because
It's going to be a long time. I told people last year, like when they like just closed everything down for 6 weeks, I was like, it's going to be much longer than that. Just because I don't want to get political, but the way some people are in this country, like
right.
you can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do, you know. But they don't. But then there's the same people that complain that they can't do this and they can't do that, and they don't understand. Well, you need to do this so we can start doing this. But
So let me ask you a question, because obviously I think that entertainment is going to come back the last.
oh
Uh,
yeah, it has to.
I think, I think it's just not cons. I'm a big wrestling fan. I love WWE. I love indie wrestling. Yeah, it's my jam, right? And I thoroughly enjoy it. It relaxes me, and I also love comics and that entire stuff. I like presenting at cons, and so I'm in a situation where I am actually not adversely affected by this entire thing, because I'm up at a dais and I'm socially distanced by nature,
Yeah,
which I like. But obviously, I also think that different states are going to handle it differently, and I think that a con in Wyoming, if they ever have a con in Wyoming, it's going to be very different than a con in New York City.
oh yeah,
Um, and I think that and also because also, and I agree that it is going to be a long time, because this is my issue with masks at conventions, and this isn't saying don't wear a mask. I wear masks to be polite and civil, and I want this thing to go away as fast as possible. But if I'm spending $100 at New York Comic Con and I want to take a picture with a pretty cosplayer, I damn sure am not wearing a mask to take the photo.
yeah.
No offense to anybody, but I just spent a lot of money, and that mask ruins it. And I think that's a real issue at conventions, because there are people who go and that's the whole purpose they're there. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that we don't have to all be adults in the room, but that's a real issue that has to be addressed. And I haven't heard anybody on both sides of political views and all this shit know how to deal with that problem. Not to mention, you got 40,000 fucking people in there. A mask isn't going to do jack shit.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
offense. There's too many people.
Oh yeah,
So,
and so yeah, I don't expect cons to come back this year. Like I said, just maybe little ones here and there, where they can control the amount of people that go in at each
and
time. Like
space
yeah,
and air circulation. That's a
yeah,
big one. The more air circulation you have, the better off you're going to be.
yeah. So I mean, maybe if the vaccinations get better, um, we could see near the end of the year maybe things get not totally opened back up, but a little bit more back to normal. But it all depends on like right now. Like I couldn't. There's things like I'll watch. We were talking earlier football, and in the Steeler game they couldn't have any fans, but then yesterday there was a game that had almost 10,000 people. Like how 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 can you have 10,000 people at a football game?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting how this is handled, and I also think that no matter what rules they set up, I think that those rules are going to be broken, and I think
Oh yeah,
that there's going to be no way how to enforce those rules,
huh.
and so I think it's going to be very anarchy, and I think it's going to be very complicated. I don't think those rules are going to be broken by people who have tickets or celebrities. I think those rules are going to be broken by fans.
Yeah,
And this isn't a political statement. Those rules are going to be so draconian that they have to be broken, if that makes any sense. Meaning that it's like you're going to want to, by nature, take a picture with a cosplayer, and you can't socially distance, and it's like it's set up to fail. Is essentially what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So I don't. I think the only answer is that cons have to essentially not open up.
Yeah.
Or they have to eliminate cosplay, or they have to eliminate a variety of stuff. And I don't know what happens, but also what I think is that I think that this type of stuff is going to become bigger, and I don't think it's ever going to leave. I think this type of stuff and these interviews and even virtual cons are here to stay.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't. Last year when this all started, I had about this time last year I had surgery on my foot, like an amputation, and I had a home health nurse come in every day, and we would talk, and they'd be like, "Well, I can't wait till the world gets back to normal." I was like, "It's not getting back to normal." Do you remember after 9/11? 9/11, they took things away from us, and they've never given it back. Like once it's taken from you, they don't turn around and say, "Okay, now you can do that." Like there's going to be things that we have to do. Like I guarantee you, like the mask thing is going to be here for a long time. Like when you're out in public, wear a mask. Like because in Asia, like even before all this, you would see they all wore masks outside. You know, so
I think the masks are here to stay for a good 5 years.
yeah,
I don't think they're here permanently, but I think they're here for about 5 years.
yeah, and until we actually get a whole, understand what it is and how we can treat it every year, and just like the flu, we get to get a flu shot every year.
The mask thing. This is my prediction is that it's going to be here for 5 years, and then about 70 million people are going to say fuck it, and that's going to be the end of it. And there's nothing that's going to be done because at a certain point, there's going to be enough people who say, okay, this is where we're done with this, and it's not political. At a certain point, it will end just by nature. So having all that, but I don't want to go into that discussion because obviously I think that my opinion about cons is that I think that it's going to change, and I think that in many ways we're not going to ever go back to what we had before. We're not going to have 100,000 person con. It's just
not going to happen.
Not to mention these cities. I don't think they're going to permit it. I don't think because if you're in New York City, do you really want to be the city? Say, oh, we had an anime con or a Comic Con, and 50,000 people got COVID. It's not usually a good look for your city. I think that's what it's really going to amount to is that public image is going to be the key factor. I don't think it's going to be policy. I think we're going to get a bunch of stuff and a bunch of cities saying we like the money, but we don't like X. I think that's the thing. So that's how I view it. And I also think that honestly, we're in e-commerce. We're in the e-commerce world anyway.
Yeah,
you're not selling your books online. You're not making money. So having said all that, and I think we just spoke about a lot of stuff. I know that I do want to mention. Obviously, you did some work in Cthulhu Invades Oz. That just did really well on Kickstarter. I don't know what Travis's plans with that are, but obviously, if you got that book, it's a really cool book. Obviously, broke down and 4 Dead Bodies, and you can pick up. I think it's still on Comixology, and I also think Travis has his website.
Yeah.
I think you have Police State. I think is out there.
It's on Amazon. It's a thing I colored a long time ago. It was I did one section of it. It's kind of apropos to today. Let me just say, at that point we did it probably I want to say 2014, 2013, something like that. And then, I still get my residual payments from Amazon every once in a while of like $1.13.
And then also Project 34 is the other one I want to sort of speak about because it's fun. It's government, superheroes. Basically, the government is created a superhero, and now they're playing around with stuff, and they created something that might or might not be controlled by them.
Yeah, that's how it the best way to explain it is the government tried to make their own superheroes, and it pretty much failed.
It blew up in their face.
Kind of, yeah. Say that. And then Project 34 is actually their 34th attempt, kind of like how Weapon X and how they did that. So 34. Well, it wasn't really their attempt. They're the children of the people who they tried to make into heroes before. So it's very much like a Gen 13 kind of thing. But it's I have 27 issues of that book written, and it's like sort of my ode to the X-Men. So if you read it, you see a lot of similarities to the X-Men.
27 issues.
27 issues, yeah. Because I actually wrote it a long time ago. It wasn't actually meant to be a comic book. I just wrote them as chapters. So there's like 27 chapters. And then I decided to make it into a comic book. And a lot of things changed. I had two of my best friends. They came, it was Christmas Eve night when I sent them the actual script for the first issue. And they said, you have to come over here. We need to fix some things. And we totally reworked all of the characters. So they both have co-creator credits in the books because they helped make the characters. But sadly, last year in 2019, well, I guess it's 2 years, Courtney committed suicide. And then Ryan was her husband, and almost a year to the day that she passed away, he committed suicide. So it's a book, like I've told other people, if you want to read it, let me know, and I'll send you the copies for free. Because I put it on, it's on Indie Planet, but I'm not really trying to make money off that book because two of my best friends helped me create it, and I just want to get out and have people read their stuff, like the characters they helped me create. So I've just been doing the book and then getting copies printed and putting it on Indie Planet. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But once I get the first story arc finished, then I'm going to bring it to Kickstarter. And after I get, any money that I make from it is going to suicide awareness.
Yeah, that's heavy. I know exactly what that's like to have people.
Yeah, they were like more my family than my family. I can tell you some stories, but they lived in York, Pennsylvania, and I moved out there to work at Harley Davidson. It was like the week of Thanksgiving, so I moved out on a Sunday, and they had me at their house on Thursday for Thanksgiving, and like that was the first holiday I celebrated in years. Like I lived after my wife left and everything. I just lived by myself, and I didn't celebrate holidays because I lived by myself. So, yeah, they took me in, and it was it hit really hard when they committed suicide, especially Courtney. Courtney was the one I'd go to cons with. Like she was a big cosplayer, and then Ryan. I was friends with Ryan before I was friends with Courtney. So it kind of like we were in the 501st Legion together, if you know what that is.
I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, and we were in there together, and that's kind of how I met them, was in that. It is, as Courtney would always say, it is what it is.
It's our crazy life.
Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't, like I took it hard, like I still break down from it, and I tell them all the time, like I don't understand why I'm still here because I've been battling cancer for 4 years. When I moved to York, I tried to commit suicide, and Courtney made me check myself into the hospital. So I had to, what?
We're happy you're here.
Well, yeah, I am too. But at the same time, it sucks because she helped me, but I couldn't help her.
Sometimes people are beyond our reach.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to her the night, it was September 16th, and I was texting her, and I dozed off because I wasn't feeling good. And I woke up like a couple hours later, and I went to text her back, and I never heard back.
So, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it, up here above my head, there's a shelf of nothing but Scarlet Witch stuff. Yeah. That was her favorite character, so I buy anything I find of Scarlet Witch, I buy it for her, and I put it up there on the shelf.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Uh, but again, as I stated, we're happy you're here.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, there's times where I wish I wasn't, but overall, I mean,
Yeah.
I have 6 kids. I got to watch my one son graduate from high school even during the COVID thing. So, um, I was happy I was there for that. And my another son graduates this year. So
It's the small things in life. It's not.
yeah,
It's not the large things.
yeah, exactly.
And then let's talk about another one that it's a little less heavy, hopefully.
Fall from Grace. It's the darkest book we do. it's it's
I was going
actually
to go with Darkest Nights, but
oh well, Darkest Night. I don't want anyone to even look at that book. I really don't. Because I took Fall from Grace off of there because that's what we'll be kickstarting next. But
let's talk
yeah,
about that one then.
Darkest Night is a
Grace.
book that I wrote and drew back in like 96, 95, 96, 97, I think. And when I was in York and then I couldn't work after I almost died from sepsis and I had to lose part of my foot. My brother said, "Why don't you get that comic book that you did way back when at work and get that out?" So I never had colored anything before that, and so I just Googled on YouTube videos how to color comic books, and I colored it in GIMP because I couldn't at that time could not afford Photoshop, and that book looks terrible. I mean, it's drawn.
We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, I tell everybody it's like it's out there. I actually had started redoing it a while ago.
We don't have to talk about it. We'll
So
leave it
maybe eventually it'll come back out. But
so
Fall from Grace.
Let's talk about Fall from Grace because I don't know anything about this. So let's talk about
because I took it off of there because, like I said, it's going to go to Kickstarter and a lot of the art and stuff had changed. But Fall from Grace was a comic book story that I came up with back early on in Hooligan Alley Comics, and I found a writer, Daniel Ham. He's from Ohio, and I'm going to ruin his name because I always do because he has so many names. But yeah, his last name's Houston. I can't. My brain isn't working tonight. But he's from the UK, and he's done a lot of other work, indie work and stuff. But his style is very different. I don't know. It's very. I don't even know how to explain it. But anyway, so he put out those 2 issues, and they were in black and white, and they were only like 10 pages a piece. I think we were selling them for $2. I don't even remember. Like, I think the digital was $1. But then he contacted me like last year, and he had redrawn the whole like first 6 issues, and he wanted me to color it. So I started coloring it, and that's when and we're doing it like it's a totally different color style than what I am. It's a very limited color palette. If I was on my other computer, I could show you, but I don't have it. But it's about this kid. Can't remember his name offhand because they took my story and rewrote it. So, but anyway, he is in the original story. He's playing like high school football, but in the book, I guess it changed it to lacrosse. So he's playing lacrosse, and it's when his powers activate, and he ends up killing and hurting like a bunch of the players, some people in the fans, and stuff, and the city wants him like prosecuted for it, but they say no, it was an accident. But they won't leave him alone, so he has to move to another city. He changes his name, and while he's there, things keep happening. Like, and he doesn't understand like why these things are happening, like following him. So it really gets into some mental health things because I don't want to ruin it because if I tell you like about it, then it's gonna like ruin the whole book. But yeah, it really touches on some mental health things and how it would affect you to kill like your friends. Really, even though it wasn't your fault, you'd still like have that guilt that carried with you for that. So it's very dark, and it's got like a supernatural type feel to it. and the writer really wrote some parts like I can't understand them because they're like in a foreign language or something. But we'll see how it goes. But
When is that intended to come out?
I'm thinking once I get all the if Omni funds, and I once I get all the all the stuff sent out and everything, then we're going to launch that. So we're thinking March, April. So yeah, it's a very dark, like I guess you could call it a superhero story, but I don't know if he's really a superhero.
Seems like more of an anti-superhero
Yeah,
story.
an anti-hero kind of. Yeah, yeah. We have the original plan for it was we were going to. That's why they're so short. We were going to put out an issue a month, and then at the end of that story arc, we release like because those would be episodes, and then that would be we'd release like the DVD box set or whatever, and that would be the graphic novel, and then there was going to be like extras, just like you would have on a DVD thing. That was our original plan, but now we're just going straight to graphic novel with it because they are only 10 pages long. So I think the first one is like 6 stories, so you get like 60 pages of story.
No, it sounds dark,
Yeah,
given how everything.
it's very interesting because, like I said, I came up with the idea, and then I found other people to take care of it. Like, and so I don't know if you've ever done that. So you get the script in, and it's like there's just there's little earmarks to what your original plan would be, but they're the way that they see the story might be different than the way you originally intended it. So.
Yeah, I haven't written anything like that yet. I haven't submitted scripts and say, "Hey, here's my idea," and run
Yeah,
with it. But obviously, this is going to be something that it hits a certain genre, hits a certain
yeah.
person, and obviously,
I've told other people on my hard drive right now. I on my external hard drive, I have 10 different comic books. They're in different stages of production for Hooligan Alley. A lot of them are just scripts, and I haven't been able to get an artist yet because I can't afford to pay them. Really, there was one that I wrote called Zeke. It's kind of like a sci-fi dystopian future apocalypse book. I wrote that when I was in the hospital after I had surgery, and I was hopped up on pain pills for a week. So I just busted through 4 issues like in a week. Because what else do you have to do in the hospital? I just sat there and wrote. We also have it's a sci-fi western called The Phantom Stranger, and a couple other things, but I can't remember offhand. But they're all like they're all in various stages of production.
so on that note, obviously, you got a lot of stuff coming
Yeah,
out. You have a lot of stuff in play, and I definitely want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. Obviously, Omni is kind of the big thing. That's why we spoke about it heavily, and then so that's front and center. And then you got a bunch of other stuff that's already out, and you got some other stuff coming. And you got wheels turning in your head, and you're
yeah.
just whether you're coloring something or writing something. So, what is coming out? When is it coming out? What can you?
Like I said, the next thing will be Fall from Grace, which will be in the spring. And then the rest of the year is Omni issues 2, 3, and 4, and the graphic novel. And then I'm hoping maybe at the end of the year or early next year to have the Project 34 graphic novel out. What else is close to being done? Of course, then I'll have broke down on Four Dead Bodies 4 that I did on colored with Travis. There's another book. I don't know if I can talk about it yet. That I did the art and colors on, which I need to finish because my deadline is the second week of December. I mean February. And that's called Malevolence. And I don't want to like really go into because it's not my project.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of stuff coming out.
Yeah, I'm always busy. Like, and then obviously then we're also throughout this year we're also going to be working on Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. We're putting the teams together right now, and that I don't know if I can say that, but that's what I'm sure we can because Travis talks about it all the time. So, but we're putting the teams together for that book that
So,
will.
to even go further, because obviously there's a bunch of stuff, and we could probably talk for the next hour easily on everything else. But where can people find you on social media? Because that's kind of the big thing.
Yep.
And I'm a big proponent
Obviously,
of
you can just
social
look up
media.
my real name, which is James Sims on Facebook. I also have my professional page, which is JW Sims. Um, and then we also have the Hooligan Alley Comics as a page. On Instagram, I have it's hooligan underscore alley underscore cosplay. And it used to be all my cosplay stuff, but since there hasn't been cons forever, it's all my art stuff now. That's where and some other stuff. I'm on Twitter at JWSims34. And I think that's it. I'm sure I'm everywhere. But those are the ones I use mostly.
So I think that that's a perfect place to wrap up. And I've been saying it with everybody who's on. I said it last season, the 90 that I did, the 150 that are coming, that obviously you got to support indie and people you like first and
Mhm.
foremost economically. And what that means is that whatever product they have, it's a t-shirt, it's a comic book, a graphic novel, a Kickstarter, you should support it. No
Yep.
money thing is too small. $10 goes a long way. $5 goes a long way. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I will
But
say this, because I said it earlier today with my first guest today, that if you are in a position where money is super tight and you're making sure electricity's staying on, your four walls are staying good, solid, you got food, water, you're making
yeah,
sure that your family's safe, that you're fed, please go do that first and foremost.
yeah,
And please make sure you are taken care of. And if you're in that situation and you have internet still, you need to follow people on social media. Social media is free. Facebook's free. Twitter's free, Instagram's free, Twitch is free. Most social media is absolutely free, and you don't have to follow everybody on every social media platform, but you should be following at the very minimum somebody on one of those platforms as well as engaging with them.
yeah,
Because if you don't engage with them, a follow really isn't a follow. And
exactly.
look, if somebody tweets something, give it a like, give it a heart. It's 3 seconds of your time. If
Mhm.
somebody likes something, says something on Facebook, give it a like. I know you do a lot of stuff on Facebook with, I think on Wednesdays with your show.
Yeah, I
Why
do
try?
Wednesdays I do a review show of indie comics, and then Friday night I do the Hooligan Alley Hangout where I interview other creators and try to get help them with their Kickstarters and
So even if you
Indiegogos.
watch 5 minutes and comment on that, it goes a long
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah,
Share that. It's typically free and goes a long way, everybody. So that's something that I'm really encouraging. First and foremost, obviously, if you got the money, back the Kickstarter, buy something from, hooliganalleycomics.com. I think it
yep,
is.
yeah. That's
Buy,
website.
buy something if you like it. But obviously, I can't keep saying enough because unfortunately, in this time, we as a comic community, an indie comic community, and just indie creators in general, really need to support one another. And it's a really good way, social media, to do that. So
Exactly.
that's, I think, the best place to wrap up. But I will give you the final word.
Yeah. Um, what I always try to say is um, I have to wait if this funds like everything hinges on this funding because then I can pay artists and letterers and stuff for my other books, or even for Omni, like to get for issue 2 to get variant covers or to get artists to do some other stuff. Stuff. I will tell you, this is always something funny because I noticed Steph Wilson. If you know Steph,
I know
his variant covers like do amazing. So I told him I was like I created a character in the third book just so I can get a Steph Wilson cover. So that's kind of where we're at. So we need even if you can't afford it, if you just share the link, it'll get other eyes on it. like people that I'm not friends with. Like, but your friends will see it, and that helps immensely.
So I agree, and I think that that is the best place to stop. Is that obviously share the link and all that stuff. And I would like to thank you for being on. Obviously spoke about a lot of stuff
Yeah,
in 2 hours, and in two
yeah,
hours, and I could have easily gone another hour. Um, but I don't want to keep my parents up, so they put up with me, and they're going to be putting up with me all week. So I would much prefer to stay in their good graces.
yeah,
But at the same time, I do want to, as I stated before, seriously go follow people on social media, guys, and comment and engage and be supportive because obviously we're I don't want to say something corny, but it's sort of true that in the indie sector we're really all in this together, and social media is
exactly.
free. And legitimately, you could share a link and you might not think anything of it, but who knows who's looking at you, and it
Yep,
can make the world of difference
exactly.
and it can get another eye on it. And sometimes you never know who's watching. You
Yep,
never know.
that is true.